And you know what the first 3 supplements most people buy are? Pre-workout, aminos, and protein. 3 things that what I would call luxury items. No one buys what they need. They buy what they don't need because those are the ones that are the most glamorous and marketed the best, right? Because they taste good and they make you wired and you get a better workout, but you're really not doing anything for your body.
I'm Dave Palumbo, founder of Species Nutrition. From my earliest bodybuilding days, I believed in only putting the best in my body, and that lives on in the Species Nutrition line of products. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
The micronutrients are your vitamins, minerals, trace metals, antioxidants. And the reason we need those is because every chemical reaction in our body, all the chemical reactions that protein synthesis reactions, the fat burning processes, they all use minerals and vitamins as cofactors. So, you know how like these doctors say, you don't need any extra vitamins, you can get everything you can from your food. That's not true, because people who work out and do 2 hours of cardio a day and weight train 5 days a week for an hour are engaging in thousands and thousands of more chemical reactions than the average person. So that means they need a lot more of the vitamins, minerals, and trace metals as cofactors. I'll give you, for instance, just so it makes relevant sense to you. Insulin. What does insulin do? We said it takes glucose in the bloodstream and it puts it into the muscles, right? So it basically is an insulin receptor on the outside of the muscle cell. That insulin binds to it, it opens up a pore and allows the glucose molecule to pass into the cell. Okay, but there's a cofactor in that process known as chromium. If chromium is not present, okay, or enough of it's not present, insulin can't do its job. And they found out about 20 years ago that people who were chromium deficient were overweight for reasons that had nothing to do with the amount of calories or food that they were consuming. It was because their insulin didn't work properly. And what does the body think is wrong when insulin can't do its job and push glucose into the muscle cells? It thinks there's not enough insulin around. So what does the body do? It over-releases insulin. And then what happens when you have too much insulin in your body? You get fat. Or you have a much higher predisposition to store calories as fat. So they found when they gave these people chromium supplements, all of a sudden they started losing weight. So everyone thought, oh, chromium burns fat. So now every fat burner on the market has chromium in it, right? The reason they do that is because of that study, but if you're not chromium deficient, chromium's not going to help you burn fat. And if you're taking a good quality multivitamin, there should be enough chromium in there, you know. Also, what are the best and most absorbable form of vitamins, minerals, and trace metals? Okay, well, as far as minerals go, chelated minerals, minerals that are bound to amino acids, are the most absorbable minerals. You don't want to be taking calcium carbonate like what's in the Tums for calcium, because that's chalk, basically. You want to use a chelated mineral. Likewise, I see people say, I ask them, what are you taking a multivitamin? They're like, yeah, I take a Centrum once a day. I'm like, do you realize that one capsule can hold 1,000 milligrams? That's 1 gram of material. And do you know how many, and if you read the package, there's like every vitamin and mineral known to man in that Centrum. How can they do that? Well, what they're doing is they're putting the minerals in there, but they're in such small amounts, we call it pixie dust. They sprinkle a little of everything in there. 1 pill, 2 pills a day can never give you what you need vitamin, mineral, and trace metal wise. It's impossible. Believe me, I make the best multivitamin on the market. It's called V-Mineralize. Okay, it's 10 pills a day. Okay, the reason it's 10 pills is you can't jam the right effective dosages of these ingredients into 2 pills or 1 pill. They're lying to you. If you're taking one, you're wasting your money and wasting your time. You gotta take a multivitamin, multi-mineral that has real effective dosages in it, okay? And you gotta do it. Look, it sucks. No one wants to swallow 5 pills a day or 3 pills 3 times a day. But you gotta do it if you wanna give your body the essential minerals, trace metals, and vitamins so that all the chemical reactions run in your body. Because wouldn't it suck if you weren't losing body fat because you just weren't taking in enough minerals? and your insulin wasn't working properly, or the Krebs cycle wasn't working properly, or the protein synthesis machinery wasn't working properly because you weren't taking in enough of what you needed, it would suck. Yeah, it's a waste. So you need vitamins, minerals, and trace metals. You need essential fats. Okay, these are easy fixes. You need a fiber supplement every day. If you're eating 5-6 times a day, you need to make sure the waste is moving through your body efficiently. I can't tell you, look, I'm not going to embarrass anyone, but there's a lot of women who come to me and they're all constipated. No one can go to the bathroom when they're on a contest diet. A lot of them can't go to yeah, everyone's raising their hand. Most people can't go to the bathroom normally, even if they're not on a contest diet. You need a fiber. If you guys try Fiberlize, I promise you, it will change your life. You'll never stop using it, ever. You use it? Good. It's a miracle, and you know what? People never told me about this. People always say, Dave, is there anything you regret about, like, you know, when you're competing, if you could go back now and talk to yourself 25 years ago? I would tell myself to take a fiber supplement, because I used fiber the second half of my career. I never used it when I was in the early part of my career. I was eating, 12 times a day, God knows how many calories, and I thought I was going to the bathroom a lot, but I wasn't. I was distended all the time because I didn't understand how important fiber was. And the gut bacteria, how we all talk about the gut biome now? This is like so important, and we're learning how it's important. The gut biome, those bacteria that live in your small intestine and your large intestine, feed off of fiber. That's the food source for them. People don't realize that they ferment soluble fiber. So when you take a fiber supplement, you're feeding those gut bacteria, which are fortifying and strengthening the whole colonic, bioflora there. And what do? They actually form a barrier around the inside of your colon and your small intestine and protect it from pathogens passing into your bloodstream. You ever hear the term leaky gut? Leaky gut is when you have poor bacterial growth in your intestinal tract, and there's gaps because they're just not fed properly, and stuff gets into your bloodstream and then causes allergies. It causes all kinds of brain fog, and it's because the gut bacteria are not being nurtured. And guess what? When the gut bacteria ferment soluble fiber, they send that small chain fatty acids that it's a result of that process back to the liver, and it tells the liver, stop releasing so much glucose, because the liver, remember, stores glucose as glycogen, and the liver likes to throw glucose into the bloodstream. And when you're dieting, when you throw glucose into the bloodstream, what do you have to release? Insulin. So by stopping the liver from putting so much glucose into the bloodstream, you actually lower your insulin requirements and your insulin release, and it makes it easier to burn fat. So taking fiber will actually help you burn fat, believe it or not. So fiber supplement, vitamin, minerals, essential fats, 3 products that you should take the rest of your life. If you never take anything else, it wouldn't matter. Those are the most important 3. People always ask me. And you know what the first 3 supplements most people buy are? Pre-workout, aminos, and protein. 3 things that what I would call luxury items. No one buys what they need. They buy what they don't need because those are the ones that are the most glamorous and marketed the best, right? Because they taste good. And they make you wired. And you get a better workout. But you're really not doing anything for your body. And these are from people who have no money. These are kids who have a limited amount of money to spend, and they go out and they buy a pre-workout first, and then if they have a few extra bucks, they buy an amino acid product. And they don't need either one of those. They can drink a cup of coffee, but they don't take any vitamins and minerals, they don't take any essential fats, and they don't take a fiber supplement. So the first 3 things you guys are going to buy is, from Species Nutrition, is V-Mineralized, Omega-Lyzed, and Fiberlyzed. And I'll give you guys the coupon code if you want to try it. The coupon code is A as in Apple, P as in Paul, AP25 on speciesnutrition.com. It'll give you, because when you're in a depleted state, your body's more likely to use stored body fat as the fuel source. But there's a proviso to that. What kind of cardio are you doing? And here's the trick question I ask my guru class when I teach it. At what heart rate, how much does your heart have to beat? How fast does your heart have to beat for you to start burning fat? 130. All right, any other? 140, sorry, 130, 140. Okay, well, when do you start burning fat? It doesn't really depend on your age because it's a trick question. All the time. It's when do you stop burning fat? When do you stop burning fat? In other words, me walking around here like walking back, I'm burning fat because I'm doing low intensity activity that can be sustained by fatty acid oxidation. When the intensity level of the activity gets too high, you stop burning fat and you start using carbohydrates as a fuel source because you go to a process known as glycolysis. So when you're in the gym and you're pushing heavy weights, you're using glucose as a fuel source. If you get on that Stairmaster and chug away high intensity, you're using glucose as a fuel source. You're not using fat. You're not burning fat. So the question is, if you're going to do cardio to burn fat, right, because we want to look good, we want to lose body fat, but you're going at 100 miles an hour and you're actually not burning fat and you don't even realize it, you're wasting your time, right? So the question is, if you're going to do fat burning, if you're going to do cardio, to burn fat, you don't want to go too high intensity. You're better off lower intensity for a longer duration because you're burning exclusively fat. Now, if you do high intensity cardio, you will burn some fat because there's an afterburn effect. In other words, there's a metabolism boosting effect of the cardio itself. But the calories you're using, the energy you're using while you're doing that cardio, while you're doing the cardio, is actually glucose. It's carbs. It's not fat. So if you're going to do fasted cardio, you don't want to do high intensity fasting cardio. You want to do lower intensity cardio. Walk on a treadmill at 3.2 to 3.8 miles per hour, no incline. Pedal a stationary bike. Just move. You're burning fat. Okay? Once the heart rate gets over 130, you're probably not burning fat anymore. You're probably burning carbs. Now, I don't go by heart rate, and I'll tell you why. Because there's a lot of people that take in a lot of caffeine, energy drinks, pre-workouts. They're starting out their cardio, they're at 130 beats a minute already. So, and then there's people that are in really good cardio shape, and they can't get their heart rate over 110 because they're in such good shape. So I don't go by that. I go by pace. In other words, if you're walking on a treadmill 3.4 to 3.8 miles an hour, that's pretty much the fat burning zone right there. That you're going to get maximum fat burning without going too hard. And if you do that on the treadmill and you feel that pace, you can translate that to the other cardio pieces of equipment too. So don't make the mistake of thinking high intensity is going to burn. Another thing that people do, they get on that stepper and they think they're going to build glutes on that stepper, or they're going to burn the fat on their butt doing that. You're not burning any fat. You can't spot reduce fat. Okay, if you have more fat on your ass, it's going to be the last to go. Doing exercises that target the butt are not going to make you burn fat. Now, you might have a lack of muscle back here, which you can build some muscle, not doing, Stairmaster, but doing squats and weight training stuff. But you're not going to spot reduce fat. It's not going to happen. It's the biggest waste of time I see people doing. I see them walking on that stepper and they're kicking back and they're doing all kinds of kooky stuff. And what's going to happen is you're going to fall off the stepper and you're going to wind up breaking your leg is what's going to happen. So don't do, I always tell people, the people love this, they think it's fun. Don't do kooky shit. Kooky shit never works, especially the week of a show. Like, don't go home and drink some, get trashed and thinking that, the alcohol is going to dehydrate me like it did Ronnie Coleman and I'm going to look great tomorrow. If you've been dieting a certain way, just stick to the process. The less you change, the better off you are, okay? If you're not in shape right now, you're not getting in shape overnight. So don't do anything that's going to wind up putting you in an emergency room tomorrow morning, okay? Yes?
When you do fasted cardio, are you totally fasted, water only, or are you?
Yes, getting back to the fasted. So you either want to do it first thing in the morning, fasted, just, guzzle some water so you're hydrated, or do it after your weight training. Because after weight training, you're depleted also, so you've depleted the carbs out. Now, let's say you have a crazy schedule. You're a nurse and you work overnights, and you got to squeeze your cardio in or something like that. It's not the end of the world if you have to do it, in the middle of the day sometime. That you're still burning fat. It's just more efficient if you're in a depleted state.
Taking any aminos or anything like that?
If you take aminos when you do cardio, and I see it happen all the time, your body will use the amino acids as fuel. So you're basically you're wasting the whole cardio session. Like I said, if you're doing lower intensity cardio, you're at no risk to lose muscle. If you're doing high intensity cardio, which uses carbs as a fuel source, you can lose muscle. And then in that case, if you took in amino acids, your body would use those for fuel. But who the hell wants to do cardio, have to take a fuel source to do cardio? Or you're doing cardio to burn fat, So I have people say to me, well, I do high intensity cardio, but I eat carbs. I said, okay, so you're eating more carbs so that you can feed the cardio that you're doing. That makes a lot of sense.
Would you say it's more beneficial to do cardio at your leisure versus fasted, as long as that way you're not spiking cortisol trying to reach fasted cardio?
Say that one more time.
So if your cortisol goes up because you're trying to force cardio to be fasted, would you be better off doing it as a more laxing time later on in the day?
A lot of people like to do, fasted cardio is not bad because even though cortisol is higher in the morning, because you're really not doing high intensity. You're just kind of moving, so you're just burning, and look, I was never a morning person. I never did fasted cardio. I would do it after my weights in the afternoon because I just, like you said, I just don't feel good in the morning. I'm not a morning person. Well, at least when I was competing, I wasn't a morning person. I used to go to bed late at night. But, it's really what works for you. Some people have a schedule issue. If they don't do it in the morning, they're not getting it done. So morning cardio is fine. Like I said, as long as you're not doing super high intensity.
How much is too much?
I've given people 3 hours a day. I mean, if they can't get in shape, they can't get in shape. Some people have very stubborn metabolisms, and at the end, they need to do a lot of cardio. I wouldn't do that for 12 weeks, but, I like to keep cardio under an hour in duration, and if it goes over an hour, I would split it into 2 sessions. There are some people that I need to give a lot of cardio to at the very end, usually women, not usually men. But I try to limit that. I try to use other variables, play with the diet, supplements, fat burners and stuff like that. But if we get to a point where the only thing left to do is cardio, we do the cardio, So you have to know when to pull the trigger, and you have to know when. I have women I start with, and they're like, I'm only doing 35 minutes of cardio. I think I should be doing an hour. I'm like, don't worry about it. You can do plenty of cardio. I said, we're at 16 weeks out. Let's ease into it a little bit, okay?
I know we don't take amino for cardio. What about L-carnitine?
Yeah, what L-carnitine does, and I think this is important to discuss the science of L-carnitine. When fats enter the muscle cell, they don't require insulin because fats are fat soluble. They go right through the fat soluble cell membrane. So they're inside the muscle cell, right? But they got to get into the little organelle in the muscle cell known as the mitochondria, because inside the mitochondria is where they get oxidized for energy. To get from the fatty acid to get into the mitochondria, they need a transporter. The transporter that they use is L-carnitine. So the L-carnitine inside the muscle cell will transport the fatty acid into the long-chain fatty acid into the mitochondria, where it will then be burned for fuel, okay? Now, short-chain and medium-chain fats, like MCT fat, coconut oil, they don't actually need L-carnitine to get into the mitochondria. They go right through the cell membrane and then right into the mitochondrial membrane because they're small. That's why they call MCTs the fatless fat, because it doesn't really have the properties of a fat. But I diverge. Taking extra L-carnitine, if you're deficient in it, could help with fat burning. Most people are not deficient in it. It's one of these things that it can't hurt, but some of the L-carnitine supplements, like the liquid ones, they're in a syrupy type of base. You gotta be careful of that. Now I know people inject L-carnitine, that's probably the best way to get it into your body, but like I said, if you're not deficient, it won't do anything. But it won't hurt you, yeah.
Not to go off track, I've been putting clients on L-carnitine for years, and just recently, within the last couple of years, I know some get like a fishy smell to them.
It's possible from where they derive it from. Believe it or not, the acetal L-carnitine form of L-carnitine is better because it's more fat soluble. It gets into the muscle cell much easier. We use that in my lipolyze non-stim fat burner, and it works a little more efficiently, I think, especially in oral form. If you're injecting L-carnitine, it doesn't matter. But if you're orally ingesting, you want to go acetal L-carnitine, and I never noticed the fishy taste. I think sometimes the excipient they put it into. Are you using like a liquid L-carnitine?
I mean, I've never had that issue. Some of my clients have.
What kind of L-carnitine are they using though?
I just call it liquid L-carnitine.
Yeah, those liquid. It's probably the liquid base that they're getting it from. That's causing the smell. Oh, sorry. Hold on. No, she was next. Let me just get you.
I was going to ask, when would you personally implement high-intensity cardio, and would you ever just prefer low intensity?
I never do high-intensity cardio. Now, once in a while, I don't want to say never. Once in a while, I get a client that's just stuck, and I don't know if it's because they're not following the plan efficiently or not. So sometimes I'll do I'll throw in a couple like just high intensity sessions in there just to see if I can spark the metabolism a little bit. But that's a very rare situation with me. You know, the weight training is intense enough. When you start having to employ high intensity cardio, it causes overtraining really quickly, and you can burn out the person really fast. And then high intensity cardio also really increases appetite. And I always worry about that because once your appetite gets, because remember, you're using carbs as a fuel source. You're not using fat. So once the person starts craving carbs, that could result in a massive cheat meal too. So you gotta be careful with that. Good. Say that again? No, I have some guys I don't ever use cardio on, but usually we do a little bit. But I do have, when I get to a point, sometimes like I'm helping some girl, she's doing Fit Model this weekend, not here, but someplace else. She's so lean, I've taken her cardio out. I'm feeding her like a burger and fries every night because her metabolism's off the charts and she's looking too lean. So, you know, depending on the category, I've never taken cardio out from a bodybuilder, you know, very rarely, maybe the last week or so because they were just too lean, but usually it's for the bikini divisions or the ones where you don't want them too hard, you know, that I'll pull cardio a little bit once they're in shape, of course.
What about like the superset?
People have asked me that. I don't like to turn the weight training session into cardio because you're training with weights to break down muscle, right? To stimulate that muscle so that it will ostensibly get bigger, okay? If you're doing high intensity, like doing high reps and stuff like that, that's cardio. That's not gonna help your muscles. You're gonna lose muscle doing that. I can guarantee if you start doing crazy supersetting, running around the gym like a lunatic, you know, just not even worried about the weights and you're lightening your weights, you're gonna lose muscle. You want the weight training to be weight training, high intensity, lower volume, you know, heavier weights so that you don't lose muscle, okay? And then your cardio is for burning fat. Don't put the two of them together. Not a good idea. Yes?
I usually get up in the morning, I jump in my pool, it's like 55 degrees. I do like a little 5-minute cold plunge.
Right.
And then I go over to my little gym area over there and I do cardio.
Right.
For like 30 minutes, just kind of low intensity like you're saying.
Right.
Is that good, beneficial?
I would probably do it in the opposite direction. Do your cardio first, then jump in the pool.
Okay.
Cool off a little bit, right?
Right.
I'm in Florida, but you know, I have a pool. And it does get a little chilly in Florida. You know, it goes down to the 40s sometimes where I am at night. And the pool will go down to 65, 70 degrees sometimes. And I got into this whole thing of swimming at night. Like at midnight, I'll literally go in the pool and swim. And for some reason, I don't know, my pool heater wasn't working or something like that. So the pool was like 65, 70, and I was swimming in that water. I bought a wetsuit, and I would go into the pool and swim. And I'm telling you, you feel great when you get out of it. You feel terrible when you're in there, but you feel great. It definitely shocks your body a little bit. Actually, they say you burn more calories trying to keep your body warm when you're cold, as opposed to like people think if they go in a sauna and you sweat, you're burning more calories. You burn more calories trying to keep your body warm in a cold situation. So burns fat, yeah. I mean, I don't know how much, but you know. Serge Nubret, if you remember the great Serge Nubret, he was famous for, he would, you know, be working out with weights, and then he would actually go outside in the middle of the winter in France and stand out there for like 10 minutes or like a couple minutes between sets to cause the thermogenesis, he would say. Yeah. Any more questions? If not, we'll wrap up. If you have any personal questions you want to ask me, feel free to come up to me. I answer anything, and I'll talk about anything with any of you. Yes?
Back to the subject of cheat meals. Is there a limit to how much you can eat?
For you, no. But for
Once your coach tells you.
yeah, well, you know what it is. I was just telling everyone to have a cheat meal, and I realized that a lot of people can do a lot of damage. like I have one girl, she'll eat a whole pizza pie, and it'll set her back 2 weeks. So for certain people, I give them the cheat meal. I'll tell them what to eat. For other people, like, you know, that are more controlled or that have a crazy metabolism, I just tell them to eat whatever you want. Just when you have a cheat meal, it's a meal. That means you're eating protein and something else. It doesn't mean you're just going to Dunkin' Donuts, Baskin Robbins, and going to all the junk food places. It's a meal. It's protein plus something else. So have some meal. I go sushi. I like sushi rolls. I know guys that go to Italian, they have chicken parm and pasta. Don't eat. For some reason, the worst cheat meal is a pizza pie. Don't eat a whole pizza pie. I don't know what it is, if it's the cheese or the dough, it just doesn't digest well. You could have 2 slices. Don't eat the whole pie. I promise you, you'll be sick to your stomach. Don't listen to this guy. He don't know what he's talking about. Anyway, thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. Like I said, feel free to come up to me. I'll answer any questions.